To Dr. Rahul and to the faculty and indeed to every one of you on this call today, thank you for this distinct honor. I've been part of, I think, 2 previous events with Woxsen University. I follow the work that you guys are doing closely, and I think you have a unique way of preparing the business leaders of tomorrow. What I would like to speak to you about today is the topic of intelligent automation. Now, automation is extremely relevant to our world. I think we've seen a lot of digitization and automation lately with this world of COVID that we are living in. And I don't think it'll change for the foreseeable future. I think we're going to have a lot of working from home, a lot of more digitization and automation happening in industry, education, and in other areas. So the title of my talk today is From Infancy to Race Leaders, How Your Business Can Embrace Intelligent Automation to Stay the Course. And this is relevant to all, especially in business. And you'll see my talk today is more focused, or my attempt is to focus more on business applications than to have a technological talk in itself. Because all of us, as we grow in business, as we grow in our leadership positions, need to have a clear grasp of what this technology is, how it is impacting our businesses, our operations, the way we interact with our clients, and almost more importantly, how it impacts the people who work for us and indeed society at large. So let me just get to my next slide. Many of you have heard about or might even know about robotic process automation. I often say that whoever came up with that name, I would love to speak to him or her, because the word robot in itself instills fear in people. A lot of people, when they hear the word robotic process automation, they think of like an industrial production line. And we've seen those pictures or those videos of these great robotic arms that are assembling cars or other kind of equipment. Robotic process automation is essentially software that we code in order to do tasks that we typically do manually. But my experience, and I work with clients a lot in this field, is that the application of robotics process automation in big enterprises is often very limited. There are areas where they show success in that they can typically extract data from documents, fill in documents in other systems, and so forth. So things that your administrative back office staff can do. But these days we are talking about intelligent automation. You might hear the word or the phrase hyper automation, and there are a number of ways that people speak about this technology. But this really is the next step in our evolution when it comes to automating not only our back office operations, but the focus these days is a lot more on front office. In other words, the way we interact with our clients in an automated way. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And here's just the agenda slide. I'll get to that one now. I want to speak a bit about understanding what is intelligent automation. And, something I've learned over the years, especially in consulting and dealing with clients. And I really want to encourage you to do the same. When people throw these terms around robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so forth, I often stop people and say, just explain to me what you mean with that. Because people will use these terms as they want. Artificial intelligence is not robotic process automation. I find often that the people I speak with think that those things are the same. So just step back, whether it's a conversation academically or whether it's with clients or colleagues. Are we talking about the same things? In other words, what is intelligent automation? And then a topic that's close to my heart is the societal impact of the smart technology era on our staff, our colleagues, on the future of our children, society at large. I want to touch on that a bit. And then toward the end, I want to try and make it a bit more practical. If you work in an organization that wants to now go onto this automation journey, and especially this smart or intelligent automation journey, what are those steps? And you will see, hopefully, that I share a lot of common sense. Because these things are not that difficult to understand. But again, as business leaders, you will have technology teams advising you. You might also have outside vendors advising you. And we never have to become machine learning experts necessarily, or have to understand the technical depth of this kind of technology. We have to understand, however, how it will impact our business operations. And you'll see one of the key things I will stress during this talk is that we should always align our technology strategy first and foremost with our business strategy. I have so often seen it happen the other way around, where a business leader will discover a new kind of technology and now they want to change their strategy because of the tech. It never works. First, start with what you want to achieve as a business and then look at technology. I've had experiences, for instance, with customers where they want to use AI, machine learning, or robotics to automate certain things. And we discovered that we could actually use Excel or API calls or other things. So there is a good chance that you already have the tools and the know-how to automate certain things. So never let vendor providers or even your technology colleagues pull the wool over your eyes, so to speak. You yourself, even if you're not a technical person, need to educate yourself and know enough about this technology to know that you make the right decisions. I want to just go back to that side quickly and just give you some statistics. Recently, in a global survey that covered all domains of businesses, they found that nearly 90% of business leaders globally indicate that they have a plan to roll out intelligent automation over the next few years to stay ahead of their competitors, 90%. So there's a good chance that whichever organization or enterprise you will end up working for one day has been or is about to be on this journey. 42% of CEOs indicate that they've already embarked on a digital transformation journey. And 56% of leaders say that they've experienced gains using intelligent automation. Currently, the adoption rate of intelligent automation globally is 50%. And they reckon that in the next 2 or so years, there will be a 70%, 70 adoption rate. And listen to this one, I love this stat. It is estimated that over the next 5 years, intelligent automation will reach levels of adoption that took industrial automation nearly 200 years to achieve. Now, these stats are from Avanade and from Deloitte and from Gartner and others. The point I'm trying to make is that organizations are embarking on this journey. They're already on this journey. A lot of them have not gotten it right. And I also want to touch a bit on that today. Because again, you might work for an organization one day that will say, we've tried automation, it didn't work. And that happens a lot. And there are specific reasons for that that I will touch on today. Let me just move on. So I want to touch briefly on understanding intelligent automation. For me, an easy way to explain it is that the various things that we are good at as human beings and that we typically do in our day-to-day work can be done by computers. And one of them is vision. We see a document, we understand what it means, we send it for approval or whatever the process is. We recognize objects. Self-driving cars have to recognize objects to know if there's a pedestrian in the road ahead or a stop sign or something like that. If we think of facial recognition technology and many other cases. So if you think of optical character recognition, these days we're speaking about intelligent optical character recognition that can even understand handwriting and the context behind that form. So for instance, I had a customer recently. They have a branch in an area close by here in Johannesburg called Midrand. The form read Midfields, or it looked like it because the handwriting wasn't very clear. But because the algorithm understood the context of the form, that the form was actually filled in the Midrand branch, it captured that handwriting as Midrand and not Midfields. Does it sometimes make mistakes? Yes, it does. And that's why we need to allow these algorithms to constantly learn and get more and more accurate. But when it comes to intelligent automation, one of the first things it can do better than we can do is seeing, is understanding what is in front of it. And we call that computer vision. So think about this from a business context. You might have facial recognition, for instance, as part of your access and security system. And I've seen this more and more as I visit customers, that you register your face, enter your personal information before you can enter the building. Now, from a security point of view, that's great because they can essentially track you wherever you go in their office or in their building. But we also know that the societal impact of facial recognition is troubling. We've seen in the last few months the riots in areas like the United States because police is using facial recognition. And we have seen a lot of wrongful arrests. There's a lot of bias in these algorithms, and we see it more so than ever when it comes to vision technology. Facial recognition, for instance, struggles to identify the faces of females or of people with darkest skin tones. And the reason is because it essentially has been created by a bunch of white guys in Silicon Valley. And we program that bias into it. Now, it's one thing to kind of laugh about it, but when it impacts our society, when it impacts the way we are being policed, when it impacts the way we are getting access to credit, for instance, because of the biases and the discrimination built into facial recognition, there are some serious problems. But again, when it comes to business operations and automating, imagine what vision can do for you. Again, as you receive emails, as you receive faxes, which is still a thing. I don't know why organizations are still using faxes, or handwritten documents that may be posted or scanned and sent to you. The intelligent OCR can pick up what that form means and not just capture the data, but also capture certain or execute certain actions. We do it as humans. We see something, we understand what it is, we then start off a process. So that's one of the 4 key things I want to mention that we humans do that technology is starting to do better. The other one is doing or executing. And here we're talking about robotic process automation or smart workflows. What do? Again, we understand what is part of our task. A task comes to us, an email, for instance, from your boss, for instance, or a colleague. And we now need to understand the context of what to do next. Do we send this request for approval? Do we have the authority to execute it? So you might be a bank branch teller, for instance, and somebody walks in and they want to open up a credit card account. There are obviously certain perimeters. You do their credit checks, their identity verification and things like that. But these are things that we do. So we take the data that comes to us and we do things on computers, and smart technology can do the same. And as I said earlier, the likes of robotics process automation is very good in a limited arena. But we're now getting to a point where this technology understands the context. And again, moving to the front office. So say I use my application on my smartphone with my bank because my debit card is no longer working. The chip might be faulty or the magnetic strip. I can then request for a new card on the app, and it can be autonomized. And this is a key word. Autonomy, in other words, without human intervention. So the request for a new card goes into the system. There's certain approval parameters, and then it should ask me, do I want to pick up my new card in 7 days, for instance, at my branch, or do I want it delivered at my home? And if it is at my home, it should give me certain timeframes to say Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. we can deliver your card. Select one that's most suitable. Then you select it. Obviously, then the card needs to be manufactured. A courier needs to be sent to deliver it at that time. Now, all the things I've just mentioned can be autonomized through smart automation. There should be very little, if any, human intervention or involvement involved in that process. So think again, when we take it to the front office, how we work with our customers, what this technology can do to serve them much quicker, much smarter, much more accurately. And the other thing is also then to learn from that data, learn from how your customers are interacting with you through these channels. So we see and we do, and the computers can do the same. Next thing is language, natural language processing. We use that on our mobile phones already. I mean, this technology has become so smart. I often just speak to my computer or to my smartphone when I have a few ideas. The transcription is very accurate. I've got a distinct accent. I mean, English is not my first language. Even Siri or your Google Home device, I'm sure a lot of you have seen how accurate these systems are, the devices are in understanding language. And not just language, but the meaning, the contextual meaning behind it, the sentiment behind it. So think of you, if you have a outbound call center, but it's autonomized. It's essentially there are very few humans working in this call center, and most of the conversations with your clients is happening through natural language processing. Now, I already know of organizations that do this, where if I call in and I speak to the call center agent, I would never know it's not a human being, and that's the so-called Turing test. I interact with a smart technology without knowing it's not a human. Now, the data you can gather from that interaction is immense. The keywords, so sentiment analysis, you can, for instance, pick up the frustration levels in your customer's voice. And if it reaches a certain level, then maybe transfer that call through to a senior person in the organization. You can also work on personas. I know organizations that's doing this through chatbots or conversational AI agents. The way a young person will speak to you and the way an older person will speak to you will be different. If you think of, if you're a bank, if maybe the older person is a senior investor or a richer person, you definitely don't want the chatbot to say to that person, "Yo, how are you doing?" You want to speak to them in a more sophisticated way. Where the young person might want to hear you say, "Yo, how are you doing?" and speak the kind of lingo that people are speaking. Here in South Africa, we have 11 official languages. I'm not sure about the statistics in India, but I'm sure it's also quite wide. In Africa, they reckon we have 2,000 to 3,000 different languages. And that is a big issue that we're sitting with here in our region, and I would assume it could be the same in India. A lot of these smart voice platforms are built in Europe, or especially in the US. And to try and use that now in a context where people, even when they speak English, it's very a specific tonality, a very specific way of expressing it, that it is difficult for the natural language processing algorithms to pick up what they're saying. And that's where the training comes in. But I also see more and more initiatives here locally where people are developing smart language models specifically for the African context. And that's very exciting. Think of what this can do in the way you interact with your customers. But let's also think of what this can do in the fields of medicine, for instance, or education. If, sometimes we need to send our children for extra classes because they're struggling in math, for instance. But what if they can have those extra classes at home through a smart audio device that understands what they're saying, that guides them in a way that a good teacher would do? And then think of medicine, think of you feeling pain in your body, and you can speak to the smart technology to help diagnose you. Will that remove the doctor or the hospital? Not at all, but it can help the doctor before you even go to the doctor's rooms or to the hospital to already get a good indication of where the problems might lie. Great opportunity. So we see, we do, and we speak and hear and we understand. And that's the third one that this technology can do. And then lastly, before I get to the next part of my presentation, is we think. We think, we understand, we have context. If I can just briefly touch on facial recognition again. I mean, we train these algorithms like crazy to understand what they're seeing. But do you know that a small baby can already recognize his or her mother's voice and face when they are just a few weeks old? So a lot of this technology is so much smarter than humans, but a lot of it is not, because we instinctively learn, maybe as a fight or flight or survival mechanism, to recognize those who love and care for us, what they sound like and what they look like. I've often seen it when when my son's mother is with me, or when I'm with female friends in a restaurant, for instance. They would easily say, "Do you hear that baby crying?" None of the guys hear it, but the ladies hear it, because I don't know if it's a maternal instinct picking up a baby in distress. So training these algorithms to do these things is difficult. We can do it, but there are aspects of what we do as humans that is difficult to automate. Now, as this technology develops, it'll become easier at automating it, but just sticking on to thinking quickly. So again, think of it from a business context point of view. A client request comes in, it needs to be understood, it needs to be executed. We need to learn through machine learning modules the patterns. And again, back to autonomous, doing it necessarily, or most likely without human interaction, understanding the context of what the client or the colleague is saying. Think of what we can do again from a upskilling point of view, from a training point of view of even our own staff and people around us. Again, think of what this can do in education. It is seeing patterns that we will never see, because we are now sitting with this so-called big data, billions and billions of pieces of data, often unstructured, doesn't make sense to humans. We are not good enough at understanding and determining the patterns quickly enough. So one example I want to give, and sometimes you think, these big banks and telcos that you deal with, I mean, they've invested billions of dollars into their Azure or AWS platforms, but sometimes they do the stupidest things. And one of the things I like to say is that you cannot automate stupidity. Okay, I won't say that to the customer necessarily, but let me give you an example. This bank, 60,000 people work for them. So every morning, every staff member working from home is expected to fill in a little Excel spreadsheet, which is a basic COVID test. You've seen it. Do you have a sore throat? Do you have a fever? Have you been exposed to somebody with COVID and so forth? They fill in that little sheet, and they email it to their line manager. Okay, now imagine 60 or 40,000 people doing that every day. Do you really want to tell me that every line manager will have the time or even inclination to look at all these emails? It is such a manual process. But what we're now doing is what if people use a browser or a mobile phone app, and then this gets collected together? Because you can't see patterns from all this distributed data. Say, for instance, people who work in a specific area in a bank branch of this bank that I'm dealing with, and a certain percentage are starting to say, my temperature started going up, my throat has been a bit more sore, and so forth. But now you can take the pattern in that data and determine there might be a problem here. Maybe we should tell the people to stay at home for 2 weeks while we investigate. Again, you can do it without human involvement. You can program the system based on these parameters to send an automated message to all the members of that specific branch or area to say, we have picked up some anomalies. For your own safety and the safety of your colleagues, stay at home. That's one example. Another example is behavioral analysis. There's a lot more psychology, philosophy, and ethics behind this technology than just the tech. And that's why I always try and speak about more than just the tech. Think of the psychology and the philosophy behind the way your customers interact with you. Not just to predict churn, in other words, which clients will most likely stop using our service, but also to think of upselling different products and services to them. The way they interact with you, obviously the way you speak, we know that says a lot. Even the way you use your mouse, the way you type on your keyboard is very distinct to you. And that is already a personally identifiable aspect of you. So if you can pick up how people are using the keys on their smartphone and how fast they're typing, for instance, and the kind of language they're using, you can pick up a lot from their behavior. But then what do you do with that data? That's where the thinking and the machine learning comes in, to identify patterns. As I said, opportunities for upselling, opportunities from stopping them to maybe leave your organization as a client and move on to one of your competitors. This thinking aspect is an imperative part of not just artificial intelligence, but of smart or intelligent automation. So how can we take all these client interactions and through pattern recognition, through machine learning, in an autonomous way, serve them better? Now, I've used the word autonomy a few times now. Remember in the beginning, I said, when you speak to people, always try and make sure you're speaking about the same thing. We call it comparing apples with apples. For me, an easy way to understand what is smart technology and what is it not. Smart technology, the word autonomy is important there. If you can program the algorithms to more and more make certain decisions, execute certain tasks without human involvement, it's most likely smart technology. If you still need human involvement, it's possibly not or not yet. That's the one thing, autonomy. The other thing is prediction or pattern recognition. If what you do can see patterns in your big data sets and execute on that again autonomously, it's most likely smart technology. If you still need humans involved, Most likely not. So that's normally when customers throw around artificial intelligence. We've built this incredible artificial intelligence platform. I say, oh, that's interesting. Can it work without you being involved? And does it see things that you can't see? If they say no, then I say it's not artificial intelligence and it's not smart technology. Okay, so that's the one aspect. We've got about 14 or so minutes left. So think of that, the things we are good at, that we typically do as workers, a lot of that can be automated and done much more accurate, much faster, and serve our customers and our organizations much better. Hope everyone is still with me, but now we get to the stuff that I really like, the societal impact. And this is, again, important. Whatever route you follow one day in your career, whether you become a hotshot CEO or a CIO, or whether you just work in a community, or even if we just think about the future of our children, these topics are important. Because again, artificial intelligence or smart technology is already impacting our world like we can't believe. But if we look at where it's going, it can either be very good, and we call that a utopian society, or it can be very bad, a dystopian society. So let me give an example. My son is 7 years old. In South Africa, they reckon that 1 out of 4 people could be a victim of human trafficking. And that is a horrible statistic. Globally, it is also a horrible statistic. But if I could implant a chip into him so that we can track and find him wherever he goes, I would absolutely do that. If that implant can pick up the increase of cancer cells or dementia, for instance, or other health-related issues, a long time before a doctor would pick it up and we can give predictive medical care, absolutely. Think of the other side of what it can do from a privacy point of view. If I can track you wherever you go and determine who you are connected with, and we're kind of already there if we think that we always have our mobile phones with us. Now imagine if that chip, and this technology is already there in its infancy, if it can pick up your brain waves, your brain functioning, and in other words, can pick up what you are thinking. Now, many of you might have heard of or read the books like by George Orwell. And he talks about Big Brother, and he talks about the Thought Police. 1984 is the book where he speaks about this dystopian society. Imagine you live in North Korea, where you have this evil dictator, and for lip service, you will publicly praise the leader, you will say what people want you to say, but privately you think that there's horrible thoughts about this person. Now imagine the state has the technology to not only know where you are and what you do, but to know what you think. That will be a horrible society, and we are heading that way if we don't control this technology. So think of yourself, your own loved ones. I've been speaking about my child. We can use this technology for so much good, but if it falls into the wrong hands, it will be so bad. So talking about societal impact and creating a better world has to be part of our conversation, and not just the business applications or the technical applications. This technology will impact the workers of an organization in an incredible way, and we have to be aware of that. People naturally fear that they might lose their jobs. We are very tribal and very selfish beings, us humans, And if you start introducing smart automation technology into your business, and you don't do it in the right way, you will have a lot of resistance from people. And this is where I've seen these kind of initiatives in big and small organizations fail. People just push against it. Again, they might do a few things because it's exciting new technology to play with. But when I start getting an inkling that this might impact my career or my future employment, I'm going to resist it. A word I like to use here a lot is cobotics. In other words, how can we use this technology to help people do better in their jobs, enjoy their jobs more? I mean, how many people spend Sunday evenings creating reports for a Monday morning, 8 o'clock meeting? I've been there. It's horrible. How many of us don't have jobs that is brain numbing? It's the same thing you do over and over again. You don't need any intelligence. It feels like you're adding no value. A lot of people most people most likely have those kind of jobs. Again, think if you're a receptionist, think if you're a back office administrator. If we can show people that this technology can help them enjoy their work better, the mundane, stupid things that they have to do is automated. So they can spend more time thinking, using their brains, planning, interacting with colleagues, giving care to people around them. Then you start taking people on a journey. And that's why I always advise my clients, don't have a big bang approach. Don't just automate everything. Start somewhere where it makes a lot of sense to staff and to customers. And once you get that cadence, once that small group of people start seeing that, hey, this is working, hey, we're actually enjoying our work a lot more, that word of mouth spreads throughout the organization. We always have to think of change management. We sometimes speak about design thinking, but nothing beats people who start gossiping about it, about good news. Now suddenly a new division or another division in the business says, this automation stuff seems amazing. Come and help us as well. And then another one. And then this wildfire starts spreading. But more important than most other things, guys, when we look at automating our businesses, is the people that it will impact. We have to take them on a journey. The other mistake that organizations make that I've seen many times is we devise an automation strategy without including the people who will be most impacted by it. So an example is I've been working with a hospital group where we've discussed that when people walk into register at the hospital, they fill in a little form. That form is recaptured by somebody. I mean, and the moment you don't capture data once and at source, there will be mistakes. The moment people have to recapture it into an Excel sheet or whatever, we make mistakes. So that front desk staff, who are often junior nurses, they have a lot of administrative work to do and they have very busy days. If you now devise this automation strategy without asking them what will help them most if we automate it, firstly, they will resist it. You'll most likely automate things that really don't impact anyone. So bring people in. It should not be a technologist conversation. The people who will be impacted, the drivers who deliver things, the security staff, the people who fill out the forms, they should be part of this journey because you might get insights from them about what should be automated that you've never thought about. Important to keep workers in mind. They're obviously clients, and I've already alluded to that a lot. Also, bring in some of your key clients and ask them, what will help you if we automate certain things? Don't do it in isolation. Especially your larger, more important clients that you interact with most likely daily. They might give you ideas that you've never thought about. They might also make you realize that some of the top 5 or 10 things you wanted to automate would have no impact to them at all. So now you're spending all this time and effort into something that's going to mean nothing to anyone else. Often it is some very small little changes that will make the life of your clients better, where you don't even need artificial intelligence or smart automation. Bring the people in, your customers and your staff. Get the insights from them before you start devising this automation strategy. Society, as I've already said, think of our children, think of education, think of healthcare, think of the economic future of our world. Think of how, for instance, this vaccine rollout, if it is better automated by governments, how many more people could have been vaccinated, for instance? So there's a lot of good we can do to people. There's a lot of good we can do to poor people in rural areas who don't have access to medicine and healthcare. I've been reading more and more about how drone technology is used by your blood banks to transport blood to far out areas where it's needed, or other medicine. I've even seen articles where personal protective equipment is packaged into a drone and sent somewhere. So imagine and you can also pick up the blood samples of sick people, fly it back to the lab. There's a lot we can do. Never, ever stop thinking about your staff and your customers and society as a whole when we embark on this technology. That's where the problems come in. I'm almost done. Now I want to just briefly touch in the 5 minutes or so that we have left on the business journey. And I guess I haven't been seeing if there are questions. If there's time, we can maybe take 1 or 2 questions. I'm actually going to go through this quickly so we've got some time. I alluded to this at the start. What is your objective? Difficult conversations I have with clients is they will say, we want to do artificial intelligence. Can you help us? And then I say, to do what? And I do not kid you. More often than not, the meeting goes quiet. And they mean, what do you mean, do what? I mean, artificial intelligence is going to fix all our problems. It's a silver bullet. And I say, what do you want to achieve? What is the business problem? And is AI or smart automation the answer? And it's sometimes just the way people work. It's not technology. It's people don't understand their jobs. They don't understand how, if I do this thing a day late, how it will impact it downstream. So that's the way of working analysis and consulting. is the first thing you do before you look at technology. But always start with what are you trying to achieve? And that what you're trying to achieve should always touch your back office operations, your staff, and your front office, your clients. So the objective could be we receive 1,000 inbound calls a day. We normally resolve the issue within 8 minutes. We would like to be able to receive double as many calls and resolve the issue in half that time. Now that's a business objective we can work with, cost saving, serving customers better, etc. And you might not believe me. This point is what most people are missing. Why in the conversations I'm having? What are you trying to do? Why are you trying to do it? What is the objective? And then only, is this technology the right answer for you? The other one is history, and I've already alluded to this. A lot of organizations have tried doing smart automation, robotic process automation. In some pockets, they might have gotten it right. In a lot of areas, they haven't gotten it right. So now it's left almost like a bad taste in their mouth because this technology is very expensive. The application or the implementation is very expensive. So now you spend $5 million on an automation project. You don't see the returns. You don't really see the benefits. You're going to most likely try not to automate again. So when you work in a business and they want to speak about automation, find out what's happened in the past and why it's failed. So that because also those people will be the ones resisting the initiative more than others because they've said, we've done it. It doesn't work. It's all just pie in the sky stuff. Why has it failed? And what can we do better this time? So understand that broken marriage, that broken heart, love-hate relationship with automation after you've started understanding the business objective. And I cannot reiterate this more. The people, how will it impact your people? Of great importance is upskilling. Because what do you do? Again, in South Africa, we have an unemployment rate of about 38%. Many people reckon it's closer to 50%. A lot of organizations or industries like banks, for instance, are very unionized. Once you do anything that's going to impact jobs, you'll have a lot of pushback. So you're going to have a strategy of how many people's work will be impacted by this automation initiative, and what are we going to do with them? When clients speak to me about reducing headcount as their only reason for automating, I always walk away because it's not a good enough reason. They call it FTE reduction. Full-time equivalent is a nice way of talking about another human being or talking about somebody as a resource. I mean, it's a person with a job and a family and future prospects and ambitions. It's not a FTE, it's not a resource. So another way to look at it then, headcount reduction is, say you have 100 people in your team and you believe that actually only 80 people can do the job of 100 people. So we want to automate and get rid of 20. I always speak to my customers, but what about future growth? Because you are intending to grow, are you not? So if you're currently doing this with 100 people, you might need 20 more people in a year from now. The best way to approach this is keep the 100, empower them to do the work that 120 could have done. So a future growth conversation is a lot better for people. And it's a lot more better for the business than talking about almost a knee-jerk reaction, just cutting costs right now. I'm almost done. Data, big data, if your data is not mature, if your data strategy is not in place, these smart technologies feed off data. And if you don't allow it to access the right data in the right way, then it's not going to see, it's not going to do, it's not going to decide, it's not going to learn. It's very important. Where's your data sitting? I have some big clients where they have data, millions of data sets on clients. It's unstructured. It's all over the show. They don't even know where it is. So often not only an organizational readiness, but a data cleanup, data readiness initiative is the foundation of a smart technology or a smart automation initiative. Talent, and again, what do you do with your people? Not only how do you upskill your current workforce, but what do you need in the future? You might need machine learning engineers. You might need change agents. You might need better human resources, people that understand this technology. So not only growing your current workforce, but also employing new blood into your organization is a key part of a strategy of this technology. And then just to wrap it up. So what would we speak about? We spoke about understanding intelligent automations. Remember the 4 things that humans do well, this technology can do better. We spoke about a better world, or the societal impact of this technology, which is a key part of this. And then the business journey. Don't start with a technology initiative, start with a people initiative supported by technology. Always keep your people in mind, your staff, how it's going to impact them, how it's going to impact their families. Don't think of getting rid of people. Think of empowering your people for future growth.